Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another show of our Voices of the Festival. I hope you're doing well and you're gearing up to a wonderful holidays. We have a fantastic holiday evening at Helen Downing home last Tuesday. Was called the silver and gold for some of our wonderful supporters, and it was a fantastic event, very, very beautiful. So we are very happy to be here in Savannah, and we're going to work today with we're going to talk today with Jane Gilchrist and Wes Krulic, and let's make sure there's Chad. Hi, Chad. Let me find them. I'm going to invite Wes, Jane, Gil. I don't see her. I don't see her. Jane, are you watching? I see Jan. Hi, Jan. Haley. I don't see Jane. Hi, Chad. Again. All right. Jane, if you could send us a message, and make sure that you are watching. You can send me a text message also, okay? And Wes, what you had to do. Oh, Wes, it says you're unable to join. Do me a favor, go to the application store and make sure you have updated your application and you're on your phone and on Wi-Fi. So that should be the reasons. Okay. G-E, oh, that's you. G-E-G Burnside, that's Jane. Yes, probably. Exactly. There you are. Thank you. All right. So I didn't know that was G-E-G. All right. I'm inviting you, and then you had to accept the invitation. Right. There you are.
Hey.
See, it wasn't too hard.
No.
I just didn't. I forgot to ask you what were your handles. I didn't know what was your name. Okay, so let's see if we can get Wes. I'm going to invite him again, and hopefully she'll be able to join. If not, I'll ask Wes to send me a message when he's ready. You know, sometimes when the application is not totally updated, it wouldn't let you do it. Join. I don't know why, but so sometimes we had to check. So I sent an invitation to him. Hopefully he will be able to join us. I know that he should be watching. Anyway, how you doing, Jane?
I'm fine. It's a lovely day in Savannah. Cold.
It is.
No snow.
It is. Oh, I'm going to put the there's a little lower. There we go. That's easier. So you're in Savannah?
I am in Savannah, beautiful Savannah.
And it is sunny. I mean, I try to avoid the sun. I'm here. See that I can get in the sun, but I just put it. I just put it in. Have a good light, but not the sun on my face. So that's good. And good. I saw you on Tuesday in the beautiful event that we had at Helen's.
It was a lovely evening, a wonderful festive party, and it was wonderful to be together with the Voice Festival family again. It's such a long time from August, and so it's really nice when you come for a weekend or for a couple days. It just brightens everything. So thank you for coming back.
Thank you, thank you. I'm glad that you miss us in a way.
Always.
I'm happy to be back. I think we were here in I think it was either mid October or mid September, mid October, in a collaboration with the Phil, and we were doing events in the squares. It's a program that the Savannah Philharmonic has, which is called Fill the Squares, and so we did several events in three squares with them, and now we're doing this one. It was our big event in the summer and in the fall, and then we will be back in the spring. Oh no, Wes is not able to join. Again, Wes, make sure you go to the App Store and update the application, and that you are on Wi-Fi in your phone. Okay. Anyway, I will keep trying. So and so, I understand you are rather new to Savannah.
I am. I lived I'm progressively making my way down to the warm weather. I was born in Western Pennsylvania in the snow belt and loved the snow as a child. And then I moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked and I lived there for about 40 years. But after I retired, I thought, I don't really need to live here. I can live anywhere I want. So I had some friends here in Savannah. I like the weather. It's mild in the winter. There generally is no snow, even though I know that they have had it. So I came down for the winters, the first couple of years. And then I was just so enchanted with it. And I found a nice house and decided I'm going to move. So I've been here full time for about 5 years, totally about 10 years.
All right. And where in Western Pennsylvania? I mean,
Near,
like,
near Pittsburgh.
all right. Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, that is pretty
Yeah.
pretty much the capital of Western Pennsylvania.
And it's lovely. But there was at that point, there was a great migration of young people moving out, and I moved to Washington. Washington was a really nice place to work. There were lots of jobs. There were schools if you wanted to go to school, and culturally there was a lot going on there. And I discovered over the years, more importantly, you could get on the train and go to New York if you wanted to, or Philadelphia or Baltimore. The whole East Coast, it was pretty accessible, and it had great airports. So if you really needed to fly somewhere, you could.
Right. And what brought you originally to Washington? I mean, did you go there for college, or did you go?
No, we just when I got out of college, it was in the early '70s, and Washington was there were a lot of jobs there. So a lot of people moved to Washington to work just because there were jobs. There weren't as many jobs in Western Pennsylvania. So not only were there jobs, but there were also universities. So if I wanted to do a graduate degree, I could have easily done a graduate degree. The reason I stayed was that I got this wonderful job at the Library of Congress.
That's fun.
I thought maybe I'd stay a year or two, but then I stayed. My entire adult career was at the Library of Congress, which was a wonderful
What
work.
were you doing in the Congress here, in the Library of Congress?
I worked with children's books most of my career, and the last 4 years I was asked to develop and open their first children's reading room. It technically is the Library for Congress. That's their main mission, but it's also known worldwide as a premier research facility. So children don't really factor into that, even though they have an enormous collection of children's books. So at one point, the administration realized that they had so many families coming to visit, and there really weren't many visitor experiences for families and children. And a little bit of real estate in one of the buildings opened up, you know how that is. And they decided that why don't we open a small demonstration library? So that's what we did, and it was enormously successful. I often think that in those 4 years, the children that came through, who were just delightful, they were going to be the future legislators and educators and historians, people that, we had no idea what kind of influence we were having on them at that one visit. It was really a very rewarding job, but it was mainly working with children's books. I worked on the National Book Festival and worked with children's books in that too.
All right. And the fame that the Library of Congress is supposed to have all the printed books all the time. How does that work?
They have a lot of they have a huge collection. In fact, and what's interesting is more than half of the collection is not in English, because Congress's mandate for their library was to collect widely so that Congress could be informed. So they don't collect certain things. Like every library has a collections development statement. So the Library of Congress also has that. So they don't have a lot of clinical medicine, because in Washington, there is also the National Library of Medicine. So they would collect the clinical medicine. There's also a large agricultural library out in Beltsville, Maryland. So they do a lot of the agricultural material. And then there's certain things like, when there used to be phone books, they wouldn't collect some things like that. So they do limit what they are collecting, and they don't want to duplicate some other libraries. And there is a great amount of cooperation with libraries nationwide and internationally. So they can't have everything. It's just impossible.
I know, yeah, good thing, right? And what about what you're aware of? What is the status of the size or the depth of the music library?
Well, I know a little bit about the music library. It is, and it was so interesting that a month or so ago, when who was the young artist who played the glass flute? Lizzo, and she's a trained flautist, and so was working in the library, and they have this wonderful collection of flutes that someone gave them years ago. And she played this glass flute. So they have this flute collection, they have sheet music, they have recordings, they have a wonderful, I think it's 4 Stradivarius instruments that they play periodically. The Juilliard String Quartet comes down and plays them. They do a concert season. So it's a really robust part of the library. The library also has films. Every year they have a film registry, so they preserve films. There's a big map collection. So it's quite a varied place. It's not just books.
And where do they keep in that building?
There are 4 buildings on Capitol Hill, and then there are these new sort of high-tech storage facilities out in suburban Maryland. And it was built right before I left, or before I retired. They moved the sound recordings out and the films out to a facility in Culpeper, Virginia. So there's a big campus out there that is dedicated to films and sound recordings. And it was a decommissioned military facility. So some of it's built into a side of a hill. So it's, for preservation purposes, it's really state of the art. It's really quite nice.
And the recordings and the video are right now are physical recordings, meaning are actual tapes and actual CDs and RCDs?
Yes. I don't know what they're doing with electronic things. I know that oh gosh, this must have been 10 years, at least 10 years ago. They were, the staff would um, call the internet. So if there was, like for elections, they would archive websites for future use. Um, so if there was a major event, I remember when one of the popes died, they archived all the news and internet sites for that, because this was a major historical event. So
Right.
they do things like that. I think they also have the, well, gosh, I don't know what's happened now, but at one point they had the archive from Twitter. But I don't know what, since it's changed hands, I don't know where that all falls.
You're right. I mean, that's a
Yes.
that's a lot of information that may stay there, but also may just go away. All the digital, it's
Well,
such a ephemeral.
that's the issue for archivists and librarians, that before we had paper, people would write a letter and it would be in a drawer, and eventually if it was somebody who was famous, they might give their papers to the Library of Congress. Um, Leonard Bernstein, all of his papers are there in the Library of Congress. But if you're not writing on paper, how do you preserve that? So 50 years from now, or that someone wants to write a biography of Jorge Paruti, where do they go? Because all this stuff is digital, right? Paper.
And the website may remain, but this also as easily can be deleted or changed. And for example, now you mentioned news. Yeah, all the news are there for a day and then they're gone.
Right, right.
There's
Yeah.
no way to register what happened. Oh, that's interesting. And same thing with some of the. I mean, probably the videos and the pictures remains a little more, but not really. I mean, if things are deleted, they're easily deleted. So but also on the other hand, the amount of digital content that is being produced these days, with everyone producing them, it's just impossible to I mean, even consider to save everything. But even so, then what you choose, that will be a major
We,
decision.
we also found that, and this was something Smallbean had never thought about, that with kids in schools not learning cursive writing, that there may come to a point where cursive writing almost looks like a foreign language. So all these letters, a letter written by Benjamin Franklin or George Washington, it's written in cursive writing. It's hard to read to begin with because some of the spelling is sort of hinky. But if we get to a point where kids aren't even learning how to themselves do cursive writing, they may not be able to recognize it when they have to read it. So it's going to be really interesting to see down the road.
Well, that is interesting. I didn't know that they are not. I mean, I see that we don't use it that often, but
Right.
but from there that we don't use it at all. That's interesting. But even now, a lot of people write in not in cursive, in like types.
Yeah.
So that is also a different, right? Huh, interesting. Anyway,
Librarians
so
think
that's
about things
interesting.
like this.
Was
Librarians think about things like
No, I can
this.
imagine. Yeah, that's fascinating. So anyway, what was your first experience with Savannah? What was your first time here in Savannah?
I
How come?
I worked with a woman in Washington at the library. We went to library school together, and she moved back here. Her family was from here, and I came to visit her. And I came in February, so it was cold and it might have been snowy in Washington. But when I came to Savannah to visit her, it was, I woke up in the morning and I heard birds. And I realized the birds were the same birds that I would hear in April. So it takes them that long to fly from Savannah to, I was living in Alexandria at the time. And I thought, this is a really nice place. Spring comes early here. This is really nice. And it was mild. And I jokingly said it was mild enough in February that I didn't have to wear socks. And I sort of liked that.
Right.
And now I realize people don't wear socks all year round down here.
Oh, really?
A lot. If you look around, people, they pretend it doesn't get cold.
Okay.
Though it does.
You know, we were outside at Helen's, and unfortunately, it was a little chilly that night. So we were bundling, and we have heaters because outside it was a little cold.
Yeah.
So.
But it was it was a nice city. It was a lot smaller than it is now. It has grown quite a bit over the last 30 or 40 years. But it's a nice city, and it is welcoming to visitors and people then who decide they want to live here. So there's this mix, but it's quite a nice city.
Oh yeah, I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in the States. In terms of beauty, I think the prettiest are Savannah and Washington, in fact, or one of the prettiest in terms of the look of it.
Yeah.
They are gorgeous, and they're very different. Obviously, Savannah is very much of a 18th century city, while Washington is a very grand late 19th century city. So in the scale of Paris and late Paris, I would say. So both are gorgeous.
It's interesting you should say that, because the Library of Congress, many people think that the front of the main building is very reminiscent of the Paris Opera.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which there, if you look at it, there are some similarities in the look. But it's interesting also that you should say that Savannah and Washington are similar. And I think one thing, and I agree with you, it's a low skyline. There aren't.
Yeah.
Of course, Washington has height restrictions for the city itself. The high rises and the skyscrapers are across the river in Virginia or out in Maryland. And here in Savannah, they managed to keep the skyline low. So you see the horizon, you can see the sky. It's really quite.
In fact, there are 2 or 3 buildings that I don't love that they're here.
Don't name them, Jorge.
They happen in the 60s, and hopefully they will. I mean, I don't know if they will be. I don't know, but hopefully when some of them feels like they're condemned or they're going down, and hopefully they don't go past 5 stories. But we'll see. Because there are some old beautiful buildings here in Savannah that are 10 stories. Certainly when the one across the street from SCAD that belongs to SCAD, and it's a very beautiful early 20th century high rise. So then that one I liked. But it is, and the housing in Washington now is getting high. There's a lot of housing high rise, more than Wes Krulic is still with us. Let's see if I can. I've been trying all the time to invite him, but so.
Hi, Lisa. I see your comment.
We got him. Hi, Wes.
I'm here. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, Wes.
Good morning to you. How are you, Jane?
I am fine, thank you. It's a beautiful morning out here on the creek.
It's gorgeous here.
Wes, could you put the camera a little lower? There we go. You can see the bow tie. There we go.
Yes.
And it's not a Jonathan Green. I didn't put the Jonathan Green on.
All right.
I just put something on that looks sort of like Christmas.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you were able to. That you keep insisting. I was keeping inviting you and see when we will get you, but I'm glad that you're here. So I'm going to switch for a second to Weston since he's right here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Was wonderful to see you at the event at Helen's in our silver and gold extravaganza. It was a wonderful event of Christmas carols and all things silver and gold. We have a lot of colors about silver and gold, so it was great to see you.
It was a wonderful party and over the top. I mean, one of the best we've ever had.
Wonderful. I think actually that was my first one. My first,
well, you've been
the first time
somewhere around the world. That's why you hadn't been here till this year.
It was the first Christmas party I attended. So I've been to another one at Helen's during a while ago when Michelle was here. So that is really great. But Wes, you've been in Savannah for a long time.
Oh yes. As soon as I was out of college for 1 year, and then I moved to Savannah. I wanted to be near the beach, and working as a pharmacist, there wasn't many days I was on the beach.
True. Where are you from? Where were you born?
In Scriven County, which is halfway to Augusta from here.
Oh, you're a Georgian.
Oh yes.
All right, yeah. Georgian. And where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Georgia, where I got my bachelor's, and then I got my doctorate.
Is that in Augusta?
Athens,
Georgia. All right, great. And then you moved to Savannah. That's great. How was Savannah changed in since you first moved to now?
Well, that's been 51 or 2 years that I've been here. We've gone from Broughton Street being a desolate desert to very live, and we didn't have all the tourists back then. Everything shut down. You went home.
Wow.
3-4 restaurants maybe downtown who was open during that time, but now, oh my goodness, it's 70 or whatever we have. So it's a completely different lifestyle and different view when you go downtown in Savannah when I moved here. I lived downtown when I moved here. I lived in Trustee's Garden.
Wow.
In the dressing room for the Morris Center, where we have our voices.
Yeah.
Was my bedroom in Fort Wayne. That's called Fort Wayne. And the dressing room is now was my bedroom back then.
Really?
Yeah. It was the best deal in the world, Jorge. The Savannah.
What was that building before?
Well, it was called Fort Wayne, but it was all apartments. And there were 3 houses. There was the president of the company, the president of Savannah Gas, had a house with a pool down on the end. And then the vice president had a house on the right, and then there was another little cottage. But there were about 12 or 15 apartments in what was called Fort Wayne. The remnant of it is still there when you go behind, where the center is, the Mars Center. Yeah, that was all retail stores. And the Fort Wayne was attached to that. And I had a 1-bedroom apartment with all utilities included, air conditioning and heat.
Fantastic. Ooh, air conditioning.
$125 a month.
Wow. That is a different price. A couple of things. So at that time, of course the Savannah Historical Society was already functioning, and they were barely starting because this happens in the 50s and 60s. So how was that? So you probably saw the whole process of saving Savannah, right?
Oh yeah. I remember when River Street was just a railroad track and a dirt road, and there was a couple of bars down there we'd haunt when we were young, younger than I am now, of course, back when I just moved to Savannah. But historic Savannah ended. They had done a lot of renovation and things to Jones Street in Gaston. It ended at Gaston Street. I lived on Jones after I was in the Fort Wayne. I moved to Jones Street, 14 West Jones. And that was pretty much the fringe of the historic district at that time.
Wow.
I mean, Jorge, this friend of mine bought a house and paid $27,000 for it back, well, it was in the 70s. And it was on Taylor Street. It's a 4-story townhouse, a magnificent townhouse. Paid $27,000 for it. She just sold it for $2.5 million.
Can imagine.
So
Well,
good.
and John is one of, I mean, it's, you know, guys, I adore Savannah. I think it's you know, I always say it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, certainly in the States. But John Street, especially, John and Gaston, both of them are two of my favorite streets, especially John's. Is nowadays to walk through John's or drive or ride a bike, which I like to do on John, is so amazing. And when the tourism started, because you will think that the way the city looks like, it was always attractive to
Well,
tourism.
Savannah
No,
was
it wasn't.
with the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Ah,
That started it all, really. We had tourists come, but we didn't have them come in droves. Like, they read the book, they saw the movie, and they all wanted to experience the ghost and the this and the that, and they still are coming. You know, we still see them, which is
yeah,
wonderful. John Barrett did a great job of introducing Savannah to the world. I
certainly.
told him one
But
time at a party that he still had stories to tell, because there's always Ardsley Park, you know, Washington Avenue, which is further out. I said, there's another whole book of stories there you need to do. I don't know, really.
wow,
Yeah, I do.
wow, that is fascinating. I mean, to really see the process of Savannah, because Savannah now feels so elegant and so steep in history, but I can't imagine that it was not. So it seems like it was barely surviving at some point.
Well, it was just, let's just say it was just there. Some of the ones who had families and had lived downtown in their family homes, you know, they've stayed there through the years. It was just normal to be there. But then when people realized and discovered the gem that historic Savannah was, then many wanted to be a part of it, and, you know, started buying homes. That was a big thing. Because 27,000 was not a small amount back then, but it wasn't what it is now. I mean, $2 million for a house that once sold for 27,000 is a little unreal.
Right.
Now, there was a lot of restoration had to be done, because many of the big townhomes that we see, those old townhomes, were divided into apartments. Because on 14 West Jones, where I live, Dr. Dooley had a dentist's office on the ground floor, the garden level, and then the upper floors were all into apartments. I was in the penthouse in the top. Thank goodness he had an elevator. We had an elevator.
Oh, wow.
And a garden. We had a garden in the back. We could go outside. But the apartment I lived in is between Bull and Whitaker.
Wow.
That's
So just between Bull and Whitaker. And what is it now? Amazing house.
somebody bought it, and it's a home. I mean, it turned into a home. I don't think it's apartments anymore. No. Next, attached to that building, Jorge, you'll find this interesting, was a very similar building, because, you know, they were attached. And the building next door to us was used by the railroad for the railroaders to come. It was like in a little small hotel for the railroad men who would come in and need to spend the night and go on furlough for 2 days before they went out again. That's what that building was. So you had a mix of all kind of people downtown back then, which you still have a mix, but it's a different mix now.
Right. Huh. That's certainly a worker town, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So now it has changed into this glorious, elegant, historic city, which I adore so much. And so far, I've been coming for 10 years, and I see some changes outside, but not a lot of changes. So I see that it's staying. It is already, when I came, it was already settled in this look of, I mean, there's still construction, but it's a very settled city now.
Well, what I've noticed, you know, we've downtown, so many hotels being built.
Okay.
I mean, the Kessler collection and this one and that one, and on every square foot of empty space almost, they're building a hotel, like the new Perry, you know, the Perry Lane Hotel, which is a wonderful hotel.
Yeah.
But it's about, you know, we have a lot more people coming, so we had to make accommodations, and that's what's happened.
Certainly.
Which sometimes is thrilling, and sometimes to those who live down there is not so thrilling, because it puts them into a crowd of people in traffic and cars that they weren't used to some years ago.
Right.
You have to go with the flow, as we say.
Yeah. Big hotels change a lot of different. I mean, I must admit, you remind me of the plant section that looks fantastic. The downtown area with the extension, the western extension of the river in the plant section. That's really a great addition to this town. And both actually, and I remember all the construction that happening west of Martin Luther King and east of the Founders Gardens, all that area. Those two areas are major in hotels in the downtown area that are very new. So that's quite of a growth there. And so talking about what was your we're going to talk your first connection with the Savannah West Festival. Wes, tell us how do you connect with the Savannah West Festival?
Well, I'm one of the founders.
Right.
I go back before it was, and I was in New York with a group, and we'd gone to the Richard Tucker Foundation Gala at Lincoln Center. My wife came and she said, I've just met this man that you probably should go and meet. He's extremely nice. And I said, who did you just meet? She said, his name is Cheryl Mills. I said, you just met Cheryl Mills? She said, yes, he's right over there. Because I'm talking to somebody. So I went over and I met Cheryl. And Cheryl and I somehow got off talking, because both of us like to talk, as you know. And anyway, I said, Cheryl, why don't you come to Savannah sometime and do a master class from my friend who's head of the voice department at Armstrong, now George Southern. And he said, I'd be glad to come. Here's my card. Well, Cheryl gave me his business card, and he said, just have him call me. So I came home and I was telling this person and several others about it. They were very excited that I'd met him and he would be willing to come for, whatever. But ATC needed a judge next year, competition. So they called me and they said, do you reckon he would come? I said, I don't know, but let me call him. I do not want to give anybody his cell number without his permission. So I called Cheryl and he was not at home. So he called me back. Wes, what's going on? So glad to hear from you. He was out giving Theo, who was smaller at the time. They were playing ball or doing something. Anyway, I told him what the deal was, that they wanted him to consider coming to be a judge for ATC. He said, sure, have him call me. So they did. So Cheryl came, and then they did a master class of some things up at Georgia Southern. And that's where the idea sort of formed to do the Savannah Voice Festival. So
fantastic.
My introduction that got Cheryl into the community of music here. Oddly enough.
That story. That's wonderful.
It was just unreal. So a year went by and I was not involved, and I was invited to go over to Asbury to a concert, and it was the Savannah Voice Festival, one of the first ones. It was very small, very simple what they were doing, and I sat behind Sam Durham. You remember Sam? Couldn't see around him, so I moved. And when I moved, I sat by Kathy Anderson. And that's how Kathy said, you've got to come and be a part of this. You've got to do this. So Judy and I did, and that's how we got started, became first, some of the first board members, and enthusiastic, and met Chad and Jessica over the West End, because by then they were doing some things over there.
Right.
And
yeah, we had the studio there, and many of the events were at the West End. In fact, Wes, you were the first person I met from Savannah in New York.
Really?
But we were doing the opera drama at Opera America.
Yeah, yes.
And you and Judy were sitting there, and we talked to you, and I think it was about when we met Jim Wright also. or Paulo Lapa, one of the two.
Yeah.
But certainly I remember meeting you first in Opera America. You had come to watch the opera's drama work.
Had gotten to know us then, and she said, "Why don't y'all come to New York?" Well, we had no idea what we were getting into. Well, that was all it took, and we were disciples of the Voice Festival from then on. Support us and have been.
And Jane, what was your first connection with the festival?
Well, when I moved down here, when I lived in Washington, I attended the Washington. I dabbled in opera when I was in college, gone to a couple operas, but when I was in Washington, I came to know the Washington Opera and started attending there, and would go with friends, and really enjoyed it because I realized it was we were approaching a time that only opera and sacred music performed in churches was unamplified. And I liked that. I was really hearing the artists' voices. And I'm still a real proponent of unamplified. I love Broadway, but I do love the unamplified music. So when I came to Savannah, one year, I think I saw a performance that was sort of a one-off, that was downtown. It might have been part of the music festival. I'm not quite clear on that. I keep going back, and I don't have the program for it.
You remember what kind of performance was it?
It was Johnny Siki, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it was at the Lucas.
Yeah, that's Savannah Voice.
Okay, so
I made my operatic debut in that opera.
Oh, really? So
I played Bozo, the dead man.
Oh, well, I'm sure. I don't remember specifically noting the performance of the dead man, but I'm sure you were really good. So when I moved down here in the summer of 2018, I think that fall there were a couple of recitals at the Davenport House.
That's right.
I think one. I know there was a spooky one around Halloween, and there was a Christmas one, and there was one around Valentine's Day because all the songs were love songs. And I went to those. I would just get a ticket and go, and I really did enjoy them. And then the next summer is when I really fell in love with the festival, because I went to a couple of the events that year. And that was the year that they did The Little Prince. And I had never seen it. The Washington Opera did it as their children's Christmas opera one year, and I didn't go. And I was I love the story. It's been a favorite of mine since I was a young woman. And I thought I should go see this. So I got a ticket and went. I think maybe it might have been a Sunday afternoon. And I was so impressed with the collaboration that they had with the Garrison School for the Arts. I mean, that's a pre-K to 8 school. And I was really impressed that there were children involved with the sets. There were children who performed. There was a chorus. They were part of the orchestra, and they were in the audience. But I really like this. The other things I saw during that festival, of course, were top notch, and I really I thought, oh, at least, I don't have to go somewhere. The opera's here for me. And then somehow I connected with Maria, the force that is Maria, the tornado that is Maria. And I had lunch with her. She dragged Cheryl, and she said, do you mind if Cheryl comes along? No, sure, bring Cheryl. Okay. And we started talking about art education and what they were doing with the Garrison School. And before I knew it, I was saying yes to being involved with a children's opera that Michael Ching was writing or planning to write. And it just went from there.
Good.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it was. We are very happy with both of you to be with us all this time. Hi, Tim. We just talked to Tim Hall. He said art, and in question in what for both of you, what do you like of the festival? What do you like of it? Like as a concept, but also as a specifics.
Go ahead, Jane.
All right, I'll go first. Well, so I started out just going to the performances, which and they're varied, and so it's a variety of things. If you only like the opera, you can do a lot of opera, but or if you like the musical theater, you can do the musical theater. But what I have come to really like are the master classes. I guess it was 3 years ago, I went to a master class and I knew that I was just going to sit in the back and listen and watch how singers learn to sing. And I was interested in that because years ago I went to baseball spring training in Florida, and the Baltimore Orioles had just purchased a really great pitcher. But that day in spring training, all they had him doing was running from third base to home because he didn't know how to really run the bases. He could pitch, but he couldn't really run the bases. And so that sort of stuck with me, where you might be really gifted, but you don't know everything. And so singers go to master classes to learn how to sing or to polish what they already know. So they were really interesting. So I've continued to support the concept of these master classes. And then I go to the recitals. I just sort of do everything I can in those 2 weeks. It's a wonderful opportunity. Oh, and this year, because I know Benji and Lisa are watching, I had 2 of the artists stay with me, and it was so much fun having them with me. They're just starting out, and it was wonderful having them with me.
Good. Excellent. And Wes, what do you like of the festival?
What I like about the festival is all of the above. Mainly, it brought opera, which I loved. It brought the opera world to Savannah, which I always said, brought it to the common man like me. That we have the opportunity to hear these glorious voices and have people like Cheryl and Maria and you, Jorge, Fabrizio Milano, etc. All the top singers and top teachers in the entire world come here in August. People just don't realize that that's what we have. They hadn't caught on. They're catching on, just like Jane said, and getting involved. But it's that, and to me, the most important thing is the education. Mm-hmm. Not only watching them be groomed and taught, but it teaches us. It teaches me so much. Like a master class, I'm just enthralled with everyone that I've ever been to. And to watch Cheryl work with them, to watch Fabrizio work with them, you work with them, whoever it is, you learn so very much, which makes you appreciate the next opera you might see, whether it's our local production of Johnny Skiki or whether it's, at the Met. Speaking of, Joan, do you go to the HD operas?
Sometimes I did, especially during COVID, of course I did, but, or I watch them on TV, but I do go to them here. Yes.
Oh, tomorrow is Rigoletto.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, the main thing is, like I said, the education component, because when we worked with Garrison, seeing the students' eyes light up, with that production, they got to be involved with every part of it. And they were thrilled to death. They the opera world, they'd heard the word, but they thought it was some highbrow, hoity-toity, something that they would never be able to participate in. And yet they were there making it happen. To me, that's what it is.
That is watching will be very happy that you both picked the Little Prince, especially because that was his project, and then he started from the Garrison and he directed. It was just really a great project of Chad, and it was extremely successful in every aspect, in the educational, but also in the production and the performing aspect of that opera. So it was really fun, and I'm glad that you remember it especially.
Well, you could tell the students were mesmerized.
Mm-hmm.
They were just enthralled to be a part of something that they would have never even dreamed of being a part of, and they were thrown in the middle of it, creating and making it happen. And I thought that was one of the highlights of everything we've ever done.
Well, it's imperative that we develop the next generation of opera goers.
They can all be 90 years old. They need to be 15 and 13 and 20. But that's the ones we need to get.
Not going to sing, but I always talk about the appreciative audience. Somebody has to be in the audience.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose singers sing in their kitchen to themselves, but something about performing and to have an appreciative audience that for me, the master classes, it educated me, as Wes said, it educated me on what the singers were trying to do. And so that I could, it deepened my appreciation of what they were doing. So for the kids, giving them that opportunity, and hopefully planting that seed so that it will grow into the next generation of people who appreciate the arts. And if we want to keep them in opera, but if we can't keep them in opera, if that's not their jam, they can go to musical theater, or they can go to some other ballet or whatever, but to groom that next generation.
Mm-hmm. And to watch them being groomed, like in the master classes you mentioned.
Oh yeah.
See Cheryl, he'll take a sing, and all of a sudden there's a turnaround.
I know.
And you're just blown away with what the singer could do.
Yeah.
You see all the training they've had and the talent that they express. Suddenly, in a master class, just gets revolved into this glorious sound and being. Yeah. That's exciting.
Fantastic. Question: what do you usually look forward in the next festival? I mean, I'm not talking about what's coming on 2023, but as a general, what do you expect? What are you looking forward every summer to see in the festival?
That's a hard one. I guess I want to be surprised, and I trust you all. I trust your vision, and I know that you're going to plan a program that has variety, and maybe balance with things that maybe people have heard, and maybe something new that's stretched. I like to be stretched a little bit because I've heard a lot of opera, so I sort of like to be stretched a little bit. But then I also want to hear those favorites. One thing that you did this year that was wonderful, some of the events were free, and one of them was the film version of Tosca that starred Cheryl, and I had never seen it, so I thought, oh, I don't need to go see it, but I did need to go see it, and it was wonderful. Yeah. So it's a variety of things. I just, you come up with some great programming, and I just come.
Great.
And for me, hey, I agree with Jane completely, 100% there. But also, I look forward to what new singers come.
Yes.
The voice is like a fingerprint. They're all similar, but they're all totally different. And so, like we had Santiago Ballerini, who's a gorgeous tenor, where we thought he was gone forever because he's all over the world. But now we had Ming Hao here this time, who's another glorious tenor who's coming through. So it's always exciting to see the next soprano, the next tenor, and the next baritone come in, and what they can learn and contribute to. Well, they contribute so much too, but what they contribute and help us learn about opera and the music that they're singing. That's what I look forward to every year.
There are also some really wonderful venues. It seems that every year, maybe one venue drops out and another venue is added. The intimate salon-like performances in the Telfair were wonderful.
Yeah.
It gave me it sort of transported me
Yeah.
to another and another place. They were wonderful.
Yeah. We have amazing venues this coming summer. You'll find out, but it's really
Good.
the venue. We have many returnees, but new spaces are really special. So we're very excited with that.
Good.
So so thank you so much for your time. It was an amazing talk. See, it's over. I mean, I had so many questions that we'll have to wait for the next time, but we already made it an hour easily.
Oh.
Yeah. One question before we finish. So, what do we suggest to the people that is watching or to your own friends? How would you encourage new people to join the family?
Oh, well, I go back to my little hobby horse about unamplified music and the beautiful voices that it's an opportunity to hear these wonderful voices. Some of them that are starting out, and some of them have been singing for a long time, and it enriches our lives here in Savannah. So get in your cars and go downtown and hear these things.
Get involved.
Yeah.
Get involved.
And
you
get
know,
involved.
so many people hear the word opera, Jorge, and they think, oh my goodness, that's French, German, and Italian. I don't understand a word of what they're saying.
Right.
They forget that everywhere, including Savannah, we have a provision to give them super titles so they can understand what's going on. And once they get hooked, come and see and get hooked, then they're done. That's fabulous to watch that process. And we've seen it many times over and over and over. And the funny one is most big masculine men who think, oh, opera, that's not me. And then they go and watch one and they're caught. They're all in.
It's the drama. And for a certain generation, we grew up on cartoons that the soundtracks were many of the songs from opera because they were probably in the public domain at that point, and they used them as the soundtracks. So people know some of the music, and they're like, I didn't know that was from there.
Yeah.
I just thought that was Bugs Bunny. No, that's what that's from.
Well,
and not
many of us got our early classical music appreciation through cartoons, just like you said. Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and it was a pleasure talking to you both. And again, I thank you so much for your ongoing support to the festival. We cannot do it without you, and we adore you as a supporter, certainly as people and friends. So thank you so much for being here today, for being with us, and for everyone that's watching, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time when we talk to another of the voices of the festival. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Take care, Jorge, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Wes.
Bye-bye, Jane.